Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Decision Hour. I am your host, Adam Bird, and I have got a fun interview lined up for you today. Our guest today is a public speaker, author. He's also the host of a podcast called Beyond the Rut. It's a podcast about helping you achieve your dreams and thrive in your faith, family, and career to experience a life beyond the rut. He's also the CEO and senior leadership consultant at BTR Impact LLC. He's an Army veteran. He's also a member of the HMG family. So without further ado, my friend, Jerry Dugan. Jerry, how are you, my friend?
And I am doing well. Just had a breakfast taco from Laredo Taco. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're missing out. Yeah. There was an article a few years back, top 5 places to get a breakfast taco in Texas.
Yeah.
5 best places. And in the middle of the top 5 was this gas station that has a little side restaurant called Laredo Taco. And yeah, they're good. I had bacon and egg with refried beans and cheese, and I threw on some salsa and cilantro.
Oh, you're making me hungry. You're making me hungry.
I'm ready for second breakfast now. So.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. Let me give you a little backstory here. Here's how I met Jerry. I met Jerry back in August of 23 in Denver, Colorado. We were at an event together, and a mutual friend of ours, Shay Sparks, who's pretty much the mayor at all these podcasts things now. But she's like, "Hey, I got to introduce you to this guy. He's an Army veteran." I was like, "I like him already." I was like, let's go meet this guy. And you put on an amazing show. I love the content that you put out, and we'll get into that here in just a second. But I owe you a thank you. I want to say thank you, 1, for your service and being a brother in arms, and 2, everything that you do, because I really love what it is that you're doing and how you're helping people. So without further ado, I'll get off my soapbox, let you step up there. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. And thanks, by the way, because every time you do a shout out with Heroes Media Group, I'm like, that's me. He talked about me. And you often go alphabetical order or by most recently joined. So I'm at the front of the pack, and it's even cooler.
Yeah.
So, my wife is getting to know the group because every time that happens, I'm like, check this out. Okay. I'm like Mike Wazowski in the podcasting space, guys. I don't know if you're familiar with the Monsters Inc. when they had the first commercial and his face is blocked out, and Sully's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry." He's like, "I was on TV," even though he was blocked out. Anyway, that's me. Born and raised and Army trained. I guess I was an Army brat for most of my whole young life.
Yeah.
My dad was a military policeman in the Army. He met my mom when he was stationed in Thailand during the tail end of the Vietnam War. And somewhere in there, I was the firstborn son, and then my brother came along a couple years after that. So I was, living in the stereotypical military home, a lower enlisted family, actually middle, because my dad was a staff sergeant by the time I got to realize who he is. And my mom, stereotypical tiger mom. So you got to get straight A's, not just get straight A's, you got to get 100%, and not just 100%. You got to be the best out of everybody in that class. And there was a time where I was the best out of everybody in the class, but I got a 97% on the quiz. And the next highest score was like 78. And the teacher even sent a note like, "Jerry killed this." Like, I'm paraphrasing, but basically like wanted to let this woman who has a reputation of being a very strict tiger mom know your son did stellar. In fact, highest grade in the class by about 20 points. My mom's reaction was, "Where are the other 3 points? You're slacking. Go study." I was like, dang. So that was me growing up, and I think it was a miracle that I had friends in school, because there was no such thing as a curve, because I killed it. It didn't matter if we had a curve or not, because Jerry's going to get 100, and that's going to set the outer rim. And and then they realized, oh, he's an outlier, just throw him out there. But that'd be like Monica from Friends, that would ask the teacher for a quiz, like, are we doing a quiz today? And everybody look at me like, dude, shut up.
Yeah.
So I was that guy. Got through high school, really into heavy metal music when I was in middle school and high school, and that was I played tuba. because I was 4'11".
Yeah.
We all thought it'd be funny if I played tuba in 7th grade, and I loved it. It was just like the first note that came out, I was like, oh man, that is so cool.
Yeah.
So of course, I played 7th grade, 8th grade, mainly because the girls in the front row who play flute were cute, and I was a early start of my teenage years, so that's how you made decisions. I go into high school. I joined the football team because there's a cheerleader and I think she's cute. And so I give up band. I'm going to be a football player. Don't know how to play. And the proof is because at 5 foot tall, I decide I'm going to be an offensive lineman.
Oh.
I got pummeled a lot freshman year. Never got the girl. By sophomore year, we had an Ironman football team for JV. I was still an offensive guard. The coach of that team really loved pulling and trapping guards, and he was like, "If that guy has good hitting technique, we're gonna win." And we actually came in second place with an Ironman football team, going up against teams that had 40 and 50 players.
Wow.
So that's when I realized that my name has the F word in front of it, or F and little guy. That was also my name in my sophomore year. And then but this, I get back into playing tuba because let's do all the things. And my tuba instructor is Jim Paoletti. I have no idea why I'm telling this story, but my claim to fame is Jim Paoletti studied with a guy who played tuba as well, and that guy played. Not Jim, but Jim got to sit in the studio when his instructor in college sight read and recorded in one sitting the tuba part, or the spaceship, for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And
No way.
when he explained that to me, and his whole lesson to me was, you got to know your fundamentals. You have to know your scales. So when I assign you these scales to learn them, it's so you can walk into a studio, look at a piece of music for about 15 minutes, give a thumbs up, record in one take, get paid for a full day's work, because that's how the union negotiated it, and walk out the door while everybody else is still working hard into the late night. You already recorded your part, and you're forever the spaceship from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And I was like, you got it. And I memorized all my skills back then. That was like my freshman or sophomore year in high school.
Wow.
Got recruited for college to play tuba. At the last minute, realized I'm never going to save somebody's life playing tuba. My mom always said I should be a doctor, so I switched it up, became a pre-med student, and with a 2.1 GPA, I was not going into medical school, so I joined the Army. So that's how I wound up there, because some admissions advisors from different medical schools said, you're not getting in with that GPA, but if you get some work experience as a nurse, as a paramedic, as a technician of some kind, and maybe take 2 or 3 classes over again when you're older and more mature and you've got some life under you, and you get a 4.0 with those classes, and then you do really well on the MCAT, schools will look at you. But until then, you're not getting in with a 2.1 fresh out of college. So I talked to a recruiter, and they tried to sign me up as an infantryman.
I was going to say, did they promise you the world?
Almost, but I was a college kid walking in all cocky, so I was fair game apparently. So I went in asking for a medical job, college loan repayment. I think the first offer I got was 11 X-ray, and so the 11 series is infantry. X-ray was sort of their generic. When you go into basic training, everybody's 11 X-ray, and then from there you become Mike or Hotel or Charlie, whatever the specialty is for your infantry series or your infantry career. I didn't know that. I just heard X-ray and thought, oh, radiology.
Yeah.
I lucked out because I said that out loud. I thought out loud, and the guy looked at me, and you just see the disappointment. He went from a smile to like, oh crap. Man, there goes my sale. There goes my quota. I'm not making mission this month. And so he had to honestly tell me, no, that's not radiology. It's infantry. It's the entry level for infantry. And I was like, oh, but you get loan repayment. And I was like, okay, I need that too. Will I at least put a Band-Aid on somebody? And the guy said, I can't guarantee that. So even heavier heart on his face, like, I can't guarantee that in your contract. I was like, not even first aid training? He goes, no, I can't promise that. Like, okay, what else we have? Well, come with me. So now it's not just him, it's me in a room full of recruiters. They're on the phone.
Yeah.
And the next offer I get is field artillery. Yeah, they wanted me to be a gun bunny, 13 series.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, cool. Same question. Will I at least get to put a Band-Aid on somebody if they drop a round on their foot? No, we can't guarantee that. I'm like, not even first aid? Nope, we still can't guarantee that. Okay, what's next? Abrams tank mechanic. I'm like, great. How does that transfer into the medical field? Like now I'm getting like, okay, I got some clout here. I got the ASVAB score, the GT score that they're drooling over. And I don't know how to negotiate. I think I do. And I turned that down. They offer me Apache mechanic, and they're like, transferable skills. You can work in the airline industry, fresh out of the military. You'll get paid a lot. In hindsight, they were right, but it wasn't medical, and I didn't know I didn't want to be a doctor. And in the end, they like the guy with the phone who was like the lead recruiter. He like puts the phone down and says, "Hey, do you want to get in the army or not? Or not? And do you want loan repayment?" I said, "Well, I want loan repayment, and I think I want to get in the army." "Well, you have to think about one of these jobs." And I was like, "Oh, well." When I walked in, this was what I offered. Me for however many years for loan repayment and medical experience. If we can't do that, then I guess I need to go talk to Air Force. And I knew that had enough sting to it.
Yeah.
Because my dad,
They're
being
like,
retired
oh,
Army.
hell no.
Yeah, he was like, well, he didn't want me to join the Army in the first place. So there was always talk in the house about, man, I should have gone Air Force. And so when it was my turn to enlist, I had that as an option, but I really didn't because I don't like the blue uniforms. And so it's just worse than the Navy. But so the guy gets on the phone. He goes, "All right, how about 91 Bravo and we send you tonight?" And I was like, 91 Bravo? And they explained to me that's the 91 series. It's the medical care series. And Bravo is like the lowest level, entry level medic. I was like, okay, cool. But I can't leave tonight. I still have a semester of college. And they're like, all right, phone not even up long enough to talk about timeline. Phone to ear, phone down. You can go in June. But you don't get loan repayment. I was like, all right, that's cool. I'll take that. So that's how I got in the Army as a medic. I go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which is where I was born, by the way. So, in basic training, you're filling out lots of forms on day 0. And I did so many stinking push-ups because when the form said birthplace, I wrote down Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I don't know how, but the drill sergeants just happened to walk by as I'm filling out birthplace. And I see this arm just reach down from heaven and go, "It says birthplace, dummy." And I'm like, "I was born here, drill sergeant." "No, you weren't. Get up." And then I did. So I was getting smoked, doing so many push-ups, flutter kicks, front back go, because they thought
I thought you were BSing.
Yeah. So my actual drill sergeants from my platoon, when I finally got, this went on for like days, and then it started again when I got to my basic training unit, and my drill sergeant's like, "We don't have time for this. We got chow. We got training schedules to keep up to. Why are you always getting smoked by other people's drill sergeants and cadre?" And I'm like, drill sergeant, every time I fill out forms and I get to birthplace, somebody sees it. They think I made a mistake. They tell me to pay attention. I tell them I did. And then I'm doing push-ups. And he's like, "Hold on a sec." And he looks at my record and goes, "Well, I'll be darned. Your recruiter got you." And he's like, "And you're a college boy." I'm like, "Yeah." "Did you get loan repayment?" "No, I didn't, drill sergeant." "Man, your recruiter got you."
Yeah.
So anyway, his solution for me was, since we don't have time for all this, carry your birth certificate in your pocket in a Ziploc bag, 2 Ziploc bags if you don't want it to get wet, because we're going to get wet and dirty and muddy. And so while you're doing your push-ups, because I can't tell you to disobey a drill sergeant, just drop that on the floor. And let them see that, or drop your ID card on the floor, and then when they take a look at it, they'll see your birthplace and they'll have you recover. You take everything, you put yourself back together, and you get back to the unit right away. And I was like, all right, drill sergeant, let's do that. I still did a lot of push-ups, but there was also a Deadpool. So apparently my drill sergeant quoted almost all of Full Metal Jacket during our basic training.
Of course. It's classic. That's classic.
Yeah.
Jerry, what year is this? What year did you go to basic training?
This is 1999. So this is summertime, 1999.
Yeah. Oh, Fort Sill in the summer.
Yes. In fact, our day 0, when we're getting smoked by our actual drill sergeants as our welcoming party, 64 of us in a big bay. We're sweating. I think 3 guys have already thrown up. And Drill Sergeant Craig Pinkley, which sounds like a cool name to laugh at, but This dude was a ranger, a pathfinder, and his muscles had muscles. So you knew right away, we do not laugh at his name.
Right.
You say it, and if you're going to laugh, you just die right now, because it'll be worse if he kills you. And so, yeah, he's yelling at us, typical drill sergeant voice, and he says, "This is Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Somebody always dies every year from heat stroke or some other heat-related injury. It's already June 2nd. No one has died yet, so I'm going to PT you until somebody dies." And I thought nothing of it at first, other than this is ominous.
And this is one of this is the time in the military. Let me point this out. This is the time in the military where they could say stuff like that, because I went in '98 and I was at Fort Leonard Wood during that time, right around the same summer months and stuff like that. And it was just like, nope, nobody's throwing up today. We're gonna PT until somebody throws up or dies today.
Yeah.
And we're just like, seriously?
Yeah, they could say all kinds of things. Well, they never told you was that if somebody actually died, everything gets shut down. There's an investigation and safety like crazy. But they don't tell you that when you're brand new.
No.
They don't want you to know that. So I truly believe they all believed that we were going to PT and just train hard until somebody really died. Yeah. So as soon as Drill Sergeant Pinkley said that, 63 heads all turned to me. And it was just the scariest horror movie kind of thing. Like
they're betting on you.
Yes, unanimously, without a word spoken, they all in that moment said, "That's the guy who's gonna die." And I thought it was a mistake, or like, this is weird. What are they all looking at? And I just looked to my left, like maybe it's that guy, who was a big guy. We called him Gomer Pyle later on, like the reference in Full Metal Jacket. And I just thought, oh man, that's cool. Anyway, go through basic training. As training goes on, every so often I get like bumped in the shoulder and somebody say "effing Dugan." I'm like, oh wow, it's just like 10th grade all over again when I played football. But it's in the last week when we're kind of cleaning everything up. So back then, basic training was like 9 weeks long, and it's myself and a guy named Bohannon from like Mississippi, and we're assigned to clean the barracks floor, almost Forrest Gump style. So we don't have toothbrushes, but we have rags, and our job was to clean all the spots that could collect dust from front to back before inspection happens. And we're kind of doing the detail work after a massive cleanup of our barracks. And so we're doing that, and Bohannon just out of nowhere, he's like, "Hey, Dugan." I'm like, "Yeah." "I just wanted you to know, because I don't know what our time's going to be like between now and graduation. And it's just us two in the bay."
Yeah.
And I just want you to know, I really respect you. Like, cool, thank you, man. I respect you. But I mean, I admire you. I'm like, this is getting weird. Like in my head, I'm like,
where's this going?
I feel a little awkward now. I'm like, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's going a different direction. I'm like, I'm not feeding that. I gotta let this guy know I have a girlfriend, even though I don't. I wish I did, but anyway, and I'm like, so why are you telling me this? So because he keeps bringing it up, and he goes, "Well, I don't know if you knew this." I'm like, oh geez, he's gonna hit on me. This is gonna be so awkward. I'm like, the windows are not wide enough to jump out of. And so he says, "I'm sorry." I'm like, "Sorry for what?" He goes, I bet against you.
Oh.
And he goes,
"No.
You didn't know?" I'm like, "No, what?" Like, we had a betting pool going all cycle. I'm like, "For what?" So-and-so started it. It was who is going to die during our 9 weeks and how. There was only one name in the whole bucket. I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, you were the only name in the bucket." So everybody unanimously agreed you were the guy who was going to die. So it really came down to what week and what was the mechanism of injury that would kill you. And most of us had you pegged for heat stroke, just like Drill Sergeant said on day one. And I was like, no. So when you guys all looked at me, like, yeah, we had already been talking about, doing this. And we all kind of just looked at you like, oh, that's the guy. And then we actually put money down. And somebody thought you were going to get shot during basic rifle marksmanship, that you were going to mess up, drop your rifle and blow your own head off. One guy thought you were just going to snap, throw all your stuff off, and run into the woods screaming, "I quit, screw this," and then die in the woods from exposure or heat stroke. I was like, dang. And one guy thought you were going to get run over by a tank. I'm like, where do we have tanks? Like, where did that come from? Like, yeah, we just took his money. So anyway, it started to make sense that as these guys were losing their bets, that's when they would bump me in the shoulder and call me a name and so on. Well, Bohannon had just lost his $20 the day before.
Yeah.
And here we are cleaning together, and he's admitting this to me. And I guess there was like this small pocket kind of growing um, as well, like this anti-betting pool culture. And so I got this nickname, the Mighty Mighty Dugan. And it was like every time I beat somebody's bet, more people were kind of joining my team. I had no idea any of this was going on. I just knew I had to get through 9 weeks because my dad got through basic training. I could get through basic training. My dad, sent some encouragement, and we were kind of connecting here. And then my uncle Michael, who I, didn't really like at the time, I was like, if that guy got through basic training, I am definitely getting through.
Yeah.
Because I'm not giving that guy the satisfaction for the rest of his life. So yeah, I got out of basic training. I came in second as far as student of the cycle goes.
Oh,
Actually,
wow.
no, nowhere near it. But I was in like the top five.
But you got through when everybody was betting against you.
Yes, yeah.
That's crazy.
And it was just a cool reminder for me that, people are always going to bet against me. People had bet against me in my whole life. And like, here I am, first to graduate college of my family. Right out of college, I got my own job. Not the ideal job, but I got a job. And I'm not living at home with my dad like my cousins were at the time. And it was just like, I'm doing this. And so that was the start of my life.
Would you say that laid the foundation to what you're doing now, Jerry?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I joined the Army, I did not think about being a leader. Or helping leaders be better leaders for that matter. The only thing I had going for me was I did have a life vision that I wanted to live my life better than what my extended family always said we had in store for ourselves. So like my parents divorced when I was 11. We were with my dad. My dad, he got suicidal. He did not succeed. Fortunately, he's still around, defying death as we speak. Survived 2 heart attacks and like his cholesterol's through the roof.
Jeez.
But guys, like he shouldn't be around, but dude's still
stubborn.
Like
He's one of the stubborn ones. I get.
Yeah, heck yeah. So yeah, life was not the greatest at 11, and then of course we get back to the States. So we were in Germany at that time. We get back to the States, and we're kind of reunited with my dad's side of the family. And you think, all right, this is cool. We're going to hang out with cousins, uncles, aunts. I love this family. Well, a couple of the uncles are also going through divorce. They're all depressed as heck too, and of course, now all my cousins are living under roofs where the dads are all depressed and hating life. And, it's just sort of that poop rolls downhill kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I find myself getting bullied by cousins of mine and an uncle. And by 14 years old, I kind of draw this line in the sand and I'm like, I'm not going to live like these guys. Like these guys, especially the guys my age, are all thinking that there's nothing to look forward to in life.
Right.
Just get emancipated at 16. Live off of SSI for the rest of your life, live off of welfare. There's no point in going to school. There's no point in building a career.
Right.
It's all going to be taken from you. No point in pursuing
just giving
love.
up on everything. Just done.
Just exist.
Yeah.
And, when you die, so what? Maybe you caused enough ruckus on the planet before you left. And I thought, there's got to be more than that. Like I'd been exposed to possibilities. My tiger mom, just always pushing me to be better than everybody else, which not a healthy way to go about pursuing success.
Right.
In hindsight, and I still talk about that to this day. So there was that. We lived with foster parents for a little bit when my dad was getting the care he needed when I was 11. That exposed me to what a healthy family looked like, that they were so harmonious together that they could take care of other people's kids for a month at a time or 2 months at a time. And then all I had to do was just pay attention to my friends and their homes. Like, going to hang out with them and seeing the interactions that they had with their parents and see the interactions that their moms and dads had. And that, I dreaded going to my grandparents' house because I was going to get beat up. I was going to have to fight. I was going to be called all kinds of racial slurs. But my friends were like, oh man, I get to go to my grandparents. I'm like, really? What's that like? Oh, they live on a ranch and they always take us out to eat and we're going to get barbecue. Like the ones who were from Texas. Yeah. This is in California where I lived. And so I was like, this is so weird because they love going to their family and they love doing road trips. And for me, all that sucks. And
it's kind of different when you have, you said your parents divorced at 11. Mine, I was pretty close to the same age. I was 9 when mine initially got divorced. And it was you think, oh, cool. Now I got one family over here. I got another family over here. Like, as a kid at that age, you're like, Christmas is going to be awesome,
Yeah.
and then it's like you go through it and you're just kind of like, man, it's tough because then there's sometimes at that time there's bickering back and forth and
Yeah.
everybody's arguing who gets to see the kids at what days and times and all this other stuff. And it's like, it becomes all about them when it should be about them, the kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the kids wind up being poker chips for some kind of, bickering that goes back and forth. And whether that's one-sided or two-sided,
Right.
it's still not cool to be leveraged in that way. And I think I did feel lucky that didn't happen as much.
Good. Yeah.
Like there were a couple of occasions where it did happen, but I think my dad was able to nip that in the bud, and the legal side of this said, nope, that's not okay. So I think we lucked out in that respect, and we weren't lobbied back and forth as bargaining chips.
So I want to go back to, so you get out of school, you had some college in you, you joined the Army. Where'd you end up in the Army?
So basic training was at Fort Sill.
Yeah.
My medic training was at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio.
Okay.
And then when it came time to select, where do you guys want to go? And we got to fill out the cards again. Same cards we got when we were at the recruiting station. And so for OCONUS, outside the continental U.S., I put Germany, because I wanted to go out there and see the sights as an adult that I remember the smells. Like I remember the bratwurst from the embassies, and oh man, the smell of curry ketchup on fries.
Yes.
The cool air during the rainy season, and so I wanted to get back there and see these places and eat the food. And so for my 3 choices for outside the U.S., I put Germany. And I knew if I timed this right, I was going to Oktoberfest at least twice. And hopefully 3 times. Hopefully 3 times, but at least twice. And then I didn't know about Fasching. I didn't know that was a thing.
Right.
And for people like, what did he just call me? Think Mardi Gras, but in Germany, and people dress up in cow suits. Same idea though, as far as the partying and the drinking goes.
Interesting. Okay.
Never got a good explanation of why cow suits. And there's this other thing, like instead of beads, they wear neckties. This is during Fasching. And instead of getting ties put on you, neckties, a woman comes up to you and cuts the necktie, and I guess you go get the other half back or something. I don't know. My German wasn't strong enough yet to understand what they were telling me, but kind of the gist. Still don't understand the cow suits, though. That you just see people dressed up as cows, the black and white ones.
I grew up in Wisconsin. We don't even do that. So it's like, I don't, okay. That's different.
Yeah, if you get to Germany, especially in the Rhineland-Pfalz area, like Frankfurt, around February, March.
I love Frankfurt.
Yeah,
love Frankfurt.
You'll see it. I think it's the first week of March. But yeah, I put Germany. Germany is my first 3 choices. For inside the U.S., I put Germany. So the drill sergeant saw that, and he's like, so you really want to go to Germany? I was like, yes, I do. And fortunately, I guess, or unfortunately, the conflict in Kosovo broke out.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter where you wanted to go. If you were active duty, you were going to Germany. So there were guys that were like, I'm going home to Texas.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, you're going to Germany.
Yeah.
You'll see Dugan on your flight. Tell him we said hi.
Huh.
So yeah, I wound up with 1st Armored Division. I was in a division support unit called 123rd Main Support Battalion. So I drove an ambulance, which sounds cool, but it's a high back Humvee with a big giant red cross on it. And I learned as I got acquainted with that ambulance that, lessons learned from the Bosnia conflict was that snipers like to see if they could put a round through the middle of that red cross that's on the side of your vehicle.
You become a moving target.
Yes. And so fortunately those panels fold over and you can hide them, but if people know the shape of the vehicle, they know that that's an ambulance. But yeah, I got to drive one of those. So my first 2 years in the Army, almost no medical experience, but man, I could fix a Humvee like you wouldn't believe. And I got a little exposure because when I got to Germany, it was about November at this time. So I missed Oktoberfest turns out it's not in October either. It's in September. So I screwed that up. Anyway. So yeah, I'm in Germany. It's my first day on the job. Like I came in on a Friday night, so I had all weekend to myself. Monday morning, I'm in the company area. We did PT. I'm now in my uniform. I'm meeting with my platoon sergeant for the first time. So this would be my boss's boss for those who don't know, but I guess most of us listening are veterans, so
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So yeah, I'm being with my platoon sergeant, and she's telling me that she's been recruiting for the past 3 months a team of go-getters who are going to be our first wave to go into Kosovo, which really wasn't our first wave. It was more like a third wave because we were going to relieve 1st Infantry Division in Kosovo. And so they would go home, and then we would be the first wave of 1st Armor Division.
Right.
So really the third rotation, but the way she made it sound like we're going to war. This is going to be cool. You're going to make lots of awards and promotions and all kinds of good stuff. She even promised me that people would get shot, and so I'd get all the trauma experience I wanted. And I was like, sign me up. Because I was single, so, I had no home to go to. And I was like, well, all right, we're going to war. And I didn't say it that way. I just asked, well, I at least get some equipment to go because all I have are my uniforms. I don't have any TA-50 weapon or anything because I didn't know how the real Army worked yet. So, oh yeah, we'll get you outfitted with all that stuff before you deploy. Plus, we'll send you off to training so you'll be prepared for the theater. Perfect. I'm in. She busts out with a legal pad of paper. Brand new legal pad of paper. Writes at the top of this, Kosovo volunteers. 1, Specialist Dugan. Not only did I volunteer to go, she'd been recruiting for 3 months.
Jerry.
3 months. I'm the first guy to show up and say, I'll go. And so again, miracle I have friends because word gets out.
Yeah.
Freaking new guy volunteered for Kosovo after 3 months of we ain't going. Now we all look bad. And so anybody who is looking to get promoted anytime soon now has to put their name in the hat to also go. So we went from having 0 people in 3 months to all of a sudden we got a full team ready to rock and roll in a week. Because if Dugan can go, then you can go too, Sergeant Rubio, who wound up being my best buddy. But he was not my best buddy at the start. He hated my guts. In fact, when he was assigned to go on a field exercise in January, so this is November, January, he's supposed to go to the field for like 2 to 3 weeks. He's asked to assemble his team. First name he drops out of there is Dugan. Mother effing Dugan is coming with me on this thing. Why? Because it's cold, and I got words for him. And so they transferred me to his squad just so I could go with him to this thing. And actually, that wound up galvanizing a friendship between the two of us. There were 4 of us all together on that mission. And so, yeah, we go to Kosovo in, I think, May of 2000. We come back November, December of 2000. So after 7 months, I come off the bus. My idea is I'm going to meet all kinds of girls. I got time to make up for. First person I meet off the bus is a good friend of mine. Her name's Nicole. She introduced me to a lady named Olivia Morales, and that she's new to the unit and doesn't know a whole lot of people. And I said to Olivia that you, Jerry, would be a good guy to meet because you're just down to earth. I was like, all right, cool. Hey, nice to meet you. You're really nice. And yeah, I just started thinking about that Olivia lady a whole lot. And it took me 3 months to ask her out. Turns out my platoon leader, when he assembled all the Kosovo returnees after these 7 months, said, hey, while you guys were gone and we sent your replacements out there to replace you, we had this vacuum of leadership in the unit. And we also had some new people come in, not in time to deploy. And their morale has really dropped because of the poor leadership we had or the vacuum of leadership. And I want to fix that because some of these soldiers are salvageable. So I'm going to pair each one of you up with one of the new soldiers. And your job is to spend the next 2 weeks teaching them everything you learned in Kosovo. So I get assigned to Olivia Morales, PFC Morales, as the Army officially knew her. And I was like, oh, that's her. That's the girl. I kept her engaged so much that I ran out of content in 4 days. 7 months of experience taught to her in 4 days, or at least talked about in 4 days. Do you remember correspondence courses?
Oh, I sure do. In fact, it was funny. I was cleaning out my storage locker. I got Are you talking about the yellow?
Yeah,
booklets?
the yellow ones.
Yeah, the yellow.
They're stapled together, and you do the bubble scan contest and mail it in. I signed up for all of them, not for the promotion points, but because I needed content to share with this Olivia lady. So I had an excuse to keep talking with her while I worked up the courage to ask her out. So, I mean, I talked to her about everything from like how to set up an OE254 antenna, and there was stuff like not even in the manuals. Like there was a special forces medic who became a physician assistant who taught me that, at night, you don't want to just put lights out there, especially in a combat zone.
Right.
So get the infrared chem lights and use the liquid to make arrows and
Yep.
signs and so on. And so he taught me how to create a landing zone that would be clear as day for our helicopters using infrared chem lights. And so I taught her that. We didn't have access to infrared chem lights, but I told her about that. I stretched that sucker out for like an hour. I used somebody else's story to fill in. And so anyway, 3 months go by. I finally ask her out, and she says to me, "What took you so long?"
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, "What do you mean? I just asked you out." She goes, "I've been dropping hints for 3 months that I like you." I was like, "Baloney." Like, what hints? What hints? And she looked at me
Jerry.
dead in the eyes, and she said, "Do you really think I wanted to listen to and cared about an OE254 antenna for 2 hours?" I was like, "You kept asking questions." He goes,
Here's
"Because
your
I liked
sign.
you and I
Yeah.
wanted you to keep talking, and I knew you love this Army stuff so much that I just got you to keep talking about that." I was like, "Do you know how many points I have for promotion right now because of all the correspondence courses in the corner of my room?" She goes, "Yeah, I wondered about that. Like, that's a lot of books." And I'm like, man, I was like, "I got into content in 4 days. This is how I've been talking to you about Army stuff for the
Oh,
last 3 months." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, you could have just held my hand, you know." I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's that." Um, so that was 23 years ago. And we're still
23
together.
years ago.
Yes. So yeah, 23 years ago, we got married that year.
Oh,
9/11 happened in between.
so
Uh,
that's the missus. That's how you
yes,
guys met.
Olivia Morales
Oh,
became
what a
Mrs.
story, Jerry.
Olivia
Wow.
Dugan. So the moral of the story here is, guys, never stop learning. Maybe not that. Maybe have the courage to ask a girl
That's a
out
great,
swimming.
that's a good, or pay attention to what she's trying to say and
That might
ask
be a
her out.
better one. Yeah. I could have been dating her for 2 or 3 months longer.
Jerry, let me ask you this. I want to fast forward, getting out of the Army. You've written a book. You're a
Yes.
podcast. Let's talk about the book, and then let's segue after that into the podcast, and then
Yeah.
talk a little bit about BTR. But what's the book about? Where can people get it? And more importantly, how did the book come to fruition? Did you just get up one morning and you're like, I think I'm going to write a book today?
The cool thing is the story of the book and the story of the podcast go hand in hand.
Great.
Yeah. That's probably why they have the same title, in fact, now
Right.
that I think of it. So in 2015, January 2015, really December 2014, a friend of mine, Brandon, he's a Coast Guard veteran, which I guess that kind of counts, right?
Yeah, we'll give him credit for it.
Almost a military branch. So he's almost a veteran. No, I'm kidding, Brandon, if you hear this. Love you, man. So Brandon treats me to lunch at a Schlotsky's, and he tells me that at this time he's a pastor at a church. And he and I had served in our Christian men's ministry together. And he's like, "Hey, I love your podcast, Family Time Q&A. I want to start one. I don't know what to do technically as far as the technology goes. And then the production side of it. And you've got the experience. I like your show. I like how you put it together. And you know people in the podcasting space." So I'm like, "I'll tell you for a free lunch. Heck yeah." And then so we're there. And then we have another guy named Sean. He's at the table. I'm like, "What's this guy doing here? He doesn't have a podcast." Turns out he likes to write. So Brandon's already assembled this team of 3. Brandon will be the person who gets the guests, has the ideas and the topics to talk about. Jerry will help everybody capture this and publish. And then Sean would be the guy who writes the show notes, the blog posts that come off of our interviews and conversations. And we put together a plan. And that is, after the first year of the show, we're going to write a book, which will be our manifesto. And then from there, we'll build courses, coaching programs, speaking events, that kind of thing. So this not only is going to help men live their best lives, but it's going to also help us leave our jobs at the same time and do the things we really want to do in our lives.
Yeah.
So the idea being, beyond the rut, we want to help men who are 35 to 45 years old. They're probably Christian. They don't have to be, but probably are. They're married. They've got kids. They got all the boxes checked of what success should look like. But deep down inside, they feel empty. They don't feel like they're living a fulfilling life. And deep down inside, if they really do a gut check, it's because they're following somebody else's definition of success, not their definition of success, the way that they were created, their uniqueness.
Yeah.
So we wanted the show to speak to that. And after the 1st year, we would kind of get together, share our notes, and create this manifesto. give that out for free, and then write another book a couple years after that. What happened instead was Sean quit within 16 episodes, and then I swooped in as the co-host. And then for the next 5 years or 4.5 years, it's Brandon and me creating the show. We get it to like the top 3% of shows on Listen Notes, and of course, us hardcore podcasters are like, that doesn't really mean anything. Like, people don't know that. Yeah, so
it
we're the
means
top
something.
3%.
Yeah.
And so then after those 5 years, Brandon turns to me and he says, "Hey, Jerry, I'm ready to step down. I got grandkids, and when we record together, honestly, I'd rather be with my grandkids." I was like, "Hey, you know what? That's what the show's about." So shook his hand. I thought that was the end of the show, but I didn't want it to be.
Yeah.
Because I just gone to a podcast movement in Orlando in 2019, and I was fired up. I was like, "Let's do this. Let's get this thing going." And for Brandon, it was just end of the road for him. Actually, math might be off. 2020, so somewhere in there. So he hands everything off to me. He's like, "Yeah, I think you could take it to the next level, to where I could never take it." I was like, "Thank you." And I was kind of spoiled because he had already paid for everything for a year in advance. So I just took over everything, put everything in my name. The next year, all the bills came in at the same time. I'm like, son of a gun.
Yeah.
No wonder why he stepped back.
This is an expensive hobby.
It is.
Hobby,
and,
it was something hobby, right?
And this is before the upgrades I added in 2023.
Yeah, right.
So 2022 rolls around, and I'm in a group called Christian Podcasters Association.
Oh yeah.
And people have published a book with their podcasts, and they all kind of turned to me and they're like, "Hey, Jerry, you probably have a book in you." And the show's been going on, let's see, about 7 years at this point. And they're like, "Where's your book? Because I bet there are people who need to read that." I'm like, "Oh, that's funny. I've been wanting to write one. I think I started one in 2019, and I shelved it when I took a job. And I'll think about that." And then, like, within a week, I don't know where I found it, but I found an old file in an Evernote folder from 2015. And I was like, "Oh, this is an original file." And I open it up, and it's our agreed on like business plan with our strategic plan attached to it. Just a one pager. But on it, at the very top, was that after 1 year, we would get together and write our manifesto.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is year 7, and there's no manifesto. And I shared that with the Christian Podcasters Association, and they said, "Well, you need to make that happen." So Beyond the Rut, the book, started as the manifesto. I was going to give it away for free. It was going to be about 40 pages long, and just talk about why the show exists and how you could join me on this journey. That was it. As that evolved, and I shared it with some test readers, all of them hands down said, "Jerry, 2 things. 1, this needs to be at least 120 pages long, because this is more than a manifesto. This is going to help change lives. You're taking ideas around goal setting and casting vision, and you're making it practical for people who've never been able to do that successfully.
Right.
So you need to write that in there. Plus, you got some cool stories, because now Beyond the Rut, the podcast, had interviewed over 300 guests, and they're like, "I'd like to see some of their stories interspersed throughout that book." I was like, "Okay, cool." So what I wound up with was a book, 126 pages. I kept the avatar in mind. The avatar, and that was easy because the avatar is built on a real person. And I just thought about, when does this guy read books? Well, he doesn't read them just to read them. He reads them when he's in the bathroom, on the toilet, or maybe on a flight. So it's got to be a quick read. It can't be really like deep in the weeds with data and studies and academics. It's got to be story, practical tip. Story, practical tip.
Right.
Analogies, things that make sense to people, that could be actionable very quickly. So that's what I came up with. So Beyond the Rut, create a life worth living in your faith, family, and career, was the result of that. I had some folks help me out from selfpublishing.com, actually give me a coach to walk me through the process. Handing it off, apparently I forget the percentage, but there's a percentage of people who say they want to write a book and that they have a book in them, but only a small percentage of them actually
do it.
Not just get to it, get a rough draft to the editor. Right. It was something like, if you just got your draft done and to the editor, you were 1, halfway to actually publishing, and 2, you were ahead of, I think, like 90% of everybody who actually starts writing a book.
93. It's 93% was the last number that I saw. And
Wow.
if you think about it, you and I are podcast, us being podcasters. I've started, I don't know, a book several times, and as you know, HMG, we have a publishing arm. One of the
Mhm.
things, the reason why I created that publishing arm was to stop making excuses for not doing my own book. Is how it originally started.
Yeah.
So it's funny hearing how you took Beyond the Rut and all the interviews and stuff that you do, because a lot of people don't realize this. So if you're a podcaster out there and you got shows, take a look at it, because you probably have some type of book, even if it's like a short little coffee book that you put on the coffee table. You have those interviews, and with the technology today, there's really, let's be honest, there's really no reason that you can't write a book, especially if you have a podcast with all the technology that you can transcribe and just get it. All you need is you'll spend the money on an editor. Don't have your college or your high school English teacher edit the book. Get a professional to do it. And nothing against that. I was a high school teacher myself, not for English, because I was horrible, but it was but do it that way. I like that. So real quick, people that are listening right now, if they want to find the book, purchase the book, where can they go?
Easiest place to get it the fastest is Amazon.com.
Okay.
On Amazon, I guess
Right.
the better way to say that. And just search Beyond the Rut or Jerry Dugan, either of those, and that's pretty much the only thing that pops up. Well, if you do Jerry Dugan, you also get Jerry Dugan and the West Wind Band. That's not me, but he's pretty good. You like country music? I recommend him too.
Go look up Beyond the Rut, and you're also you do a podcast. You mentioned you talk about how often are you putting out shows with the podcast?
This year, I am doing my best to keep it on a weekly tempo. In fact, as we're speaking right now, I am about 7 hours past due to get today's episode up and running. It might be tomorrow, but at least once a week, somewhere
Right.
between Monday and Tuesday.
On average, you're once a
on
week,
average.
though.
Yeah.
On average, and you can find Beyond the Rut podcast on all your favorite listening platforms, or go to heroesmediagroup.com. You'll see his show up there as well. I'm coming up on time. I want to, and before we do, CEO, senior leadership consultant for a company, BTR Impact. How did that get started? Talk to us about that.
So as the book was coming together, and I was thinking in terms of a keynote presentation from the book or workshops from the book, I realized it needed to have a business arm to it. And so I needed a way to collect money, shelter it from taxes, all that stuff. And I wanted, the name to be similar to the show, but also different. And so BTR, turns out it also stands for Build to Rent, but that's not it. It stands for Beyond the Rut.
Yeah.
And so what I'm helping people do is have Beyond the Rut impact in their lives as well as their workspace. And so book sales, keynote presentations from the show, ad revenue, that goes through BTR Impact, but also BTR Impact publicly has a strong face towards helping leaders be the best leaders they can be and have that Beyond the Rut impact with their teams. So a lot of focus around what are the skills that a manager needs to build trust, build relationships and connection with their employees, so that their employees, one, feel cared for at work, two, feel connected to the mission and vision and core values of the company, so that they also want to believe in its success. And then third, that those leaders also create an environment where the employees feel like they're also growing in their career. They're growing professionally, and they get satisfaction out of the work they do, and see that the work they do does have positive impact over other people's lives and outcomes. So BTR Impact has that focus, because if I can help leaders have that kind of success in the workplace, they'll finally be able to look up and look forward at their own lives and say, oh, I need more work-life balance over here. I want to spend more time with my kids.
Yeah.
Well, if I want to do that, that means I shouldn't take my employees' work home with me. I should empower them to get their work done, I don't know, during the workday.
Right.
So they can also go home and enjoy their families, or go start families. And then I can do that guilt-free. And so then once you start looking at that whole person approach to how you're leading, but then also how you're impacting other people, all of a sudden you start to realize the importance of delegating, empowering people, trusting them, celebrating them, And then your people, they're still going to move on. I think the average tenure at a company is like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
But then highly engaged teams, the tenure is more like 7 years. And everybody who leaves you is going on to bigger and better things, maybe within the company. And then you get to come in and train more people, or you get moved up and then somebody replaces you internally. And it's just really cool. And then you just get better and better at this whole delegation thing. And before you know it, you're probably really working hard about 15 hours a week on a 40-hour salary, or you're running a business, leveraging people's talents and time and using systems. So yeah, BTR Impact is all about the soft skills that help you build trust and engagement with your teams. And you do that through building trust, empowering people to succeed, helping them navigate for their success in their careers, and then thriving together. So celebrating their wins, but also supporting their work-life balance.
I love that.
And there's a little acronym in there, TENT, and that's the framework, TENT. That because if you set up a tent, or just think about a tent, tents are mobile. You take them where you need to go. They're adaptable to the environment you're in. And the fastest way to set them up, apparently, is you stake out the corners first, and then the frame just comes right up. And in a similar way, leaders should be able to meet their people where they are. So we have that kind of mobility. The environment changes, policies change, customer desires change. And so we have to have an adaptability similar to a tent and be able to master change and then get other people to also get on board with that change. And then the fastest way we set up that kind of environment is we stake out our corners first.
Yeah.
And then that environment that provides safety for people to take risks and make decisions goes up a lot faster. So again, that's trust building, empowering, navigating, and thriving together. So anyway, that's BTR Impact, helping leaders be the best leaders they could be. And then at the same time, have a life worth living in their faith, family, and career.
Website for that, BTR
Impact.com. Yeah, BTRimpact.com.
So if you're listening and you can hire Jerry to come in, teach your teams, coach your teams, strongly encourage you. And he works with a lot of corporate clients all over the country. Highly recommend getting Jerry in to speak to your teams, whether it's a higher leadership or you got a small team, a group setting that you want to do. I love the analogy of the tent. On that's so profound. It's just like, oh, that totally makes sense. I've never heard that analogy before with that. I love that. Jerry, one last question for you.
Yeah.
You're on a show called The Decision Hour. We make decisions every day. Name a time in your life where your feet were on the line and you have to make that decision. What is it, and what's the atmosphere like?
Say that again.
Name a time in your life where your feet are on the line and you have to make that decision. What is it?
Yeah.
And what's the atmosphere like at that time?
Man, my feet, not my food. My feet. Got it. Food? Taco? Yeah. Man, I'm fighting to the death. Thinking about it though, there was one time, it was when I was in Baghdad, and this is more of a conquering fear kind of story or a moment. And that was, we're at a checkpoint in Baghdad. We had just gotten to Baghdad maybe a day prior, and we took over this checkpoint leading into the city.
What year? What year? Give me a year.
This is 2003. So this is April 2003.
Okay.
And we're at the outskirts of town, guarding some arches going into the city. And, kind of a chill day for me because we're not getting shot at anymore, at least not for the next few hours. And nobody got hurt anyway, but I'm just kind of chilling, looking at my gear, and I'm told, hey, Doc, we got a guy here. He's hurt at the gate, or the checkpoint. I need you to check him out. I show up, and, they thought he stepped on a nail or a rock and he's bleeding on the foot. Turns out he's got multiple wounds on his legs, and I'm just going further up, and I realize this guy's a trauma victim. He's got gunshot wounds all over him. He's an Iraqi civilian. And so as I'm working on him, I'm asking my platoon leader for permission to get a medevac to us, to get more care, to get surgery, all those things. Turns out since we didn't shoot him, not our problem. So I'm like, oh, we got to figure something out. While that's going on, out of the corner of my eye, I see a guy get plopped down next to me, kind of like on Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
When Forrest is like saving all his buddies from that battle, and there's another guy next to him. Boom. I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then another guy, boom. There, all of a sudden, there's 5 guys. And I'm like, oh, shoot. There's only one medic, and that's me. And the platoon leader's asking me, Doc, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? And I'm freezing. And I'm like, I just want to go home now. 1 was cool. 5, somebody's gonna die.
Yeah.
I I'm panicking on the inside, and eventually something inside me says, "You already know what to do. Do it." Taking action based off what you know how to do is better than taking no action at all. Don't let them see you afraid. And I just looked at the platoon leader and I said, I need every combat lifesaver you can spare me. These are guys trained for first aid.
Yep.
And if I can't have them, give me all their bags. And then if we can't get medevac for these guys, I need somebody on the other end of this checkpoint to commandeer an ambulance and get these guys to a hospital. And it was like, all the hospitals are shut down. I'm like, I understand there are 3 still operating. That ambulance could take these guys to at least one of them. And so then I start screening all the patients, start treating them, wind up getting all 5 of them treated to the other side of the checkpoint. They all get crammed into one ambulance that somebody found at gunpoint, and off they go. Somewhere in there, we didn't know how to speak to these guys. We commandeered the translator from a news crew. It was an Italian newspaper, but the crew was from England, so we could talk to those guys. We got their translator, so we were able to talk to them, find out what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, treated those 5 guys plus a 6th one that took a little bit longer to get him to us, and then did the same thing. So all that, when it was all said and done, that platoon leader looked at me and was like, "Doc, you were on fire," and I was like, I was scared out of my freaking mind. Did you see me panic? He goes, "You panicked?" I was like, "Yeah, I panicked. I looked at you like ready to scream." He goes, "Doc, I don't know what was happening in your head. What we saw on the outside was I asked you a question, and within 2 seconds, you gave me an answer, and I executed on that answer." I was like, "Really?"
Smooth.
And it was just a powerful lesson that fear can really stretch time out and make things seem like they're worse than they are or taking longer than you thought they did. But if you just take a deep breath, remember that you do know how to do the thing you're tackling, and that you already have what you need to take the first step. That realization, I was at 27 years old at the time. I'm 48 now, and every time I feel like I'm overwhelmed, I just pause, take that deep breath, and tell myself, I have everything I need right now to take the next step. And that's all I can do. And that's got me through a lot of stuff.
That's awesome. That's an amazing story, Jared. Thank you for sharing that
Thank you.
with us. And again, thank you for everything that you do. Folks, we're going to have Jerry's contact information in the show notes below. Make sure you go look up Beyond the Rut podcast, get the book. Also, if you work for a company or you would like to have Jerry come in and speak, you can go to btrimpact.com. You can contact him there as well. Highly, highly recommend getting him into talking to your team or teams. And the sooner the better, because he fills up fast. So, but that is all the time that we have today. Jerry, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your busy day to join us and talk with my listeners here. Thank you again for being part of the HMG family. Thank you for being a brother in arms. I appreciate you for that. Folks, again, make sure you go check out Jerry's stuff. We're going to have it in the show notes below. Before we let you go, also go check out our parent company, Heroes Media Group. Go to heroesmediagroup.com. Check out all the great podcast shows and new articles that are up there. If you're a podcaster or an author and you want to work with us, you can hit us up there or find us on any of the social platforms at Heroes Media GRP. Until next time, you've been listening to The Decision House.